Today is actually the 5-year anniversary of the company. We've come a long way from then. You mentioned the Gen 3, which obviously is our latest project. We recently announced our first production cars powered by the Coyote Gen 3 engine. We've already delivered 3 of them. We've got 2 more going out shortly. So yeah, it's we just keep implementing the newest and best technology that achieves our objectives of modern performance, reliability, and comfort.
You know, if we roll the clock back to almost, well, actually before day one, I remember that you had 2 particular cars that ended up being the mules.
Yeah, the 2 mule cars, all the prototype cars at Revology we name. The production cars have numbers. So the prototype cars were owned by the company, were named. So the 2 cars were Chip and Lumpy. And so Chip was a 65 convertible and Lumpy was a 65 fastback. And I had those cars built while I was still working for Nissan. And I had them built by 2 of the most respected builders in the country. Mm-hmm. My thought was that I'd like to see what they do and how they do it, to have a reference point, what's out there. And so we had those 2 cars to start with when we started Revology, so we kind of had a something to go from, to variance off of. That was really the purpose of having those 2 cars built.
And the reason I know a little bit about those cars is you invited me down here in 2014 to drive them. Mm-hmm. I think what I said really motivated you.
Yeah, you said one of them you drove back from Daytona was the absolute worst experience you've ever had in an automobile.
Right.
I think. So that's kind of saying something. Yeah, it's unfortunately building a proper restomod is not as easy as just bolting a bunch of parts together. Because there's just a tremendous amount of integration work that's done when you think about the level of change that your typical restomod represents versus the way the car was originally designed. It's pretty significant. Powertrain, chassis, brakes, suspension, electrical system, cooling system, heating and air conditioning. Now, people don't think about things like latches and mechanisms and sealing around the windows and squeak and rattle and, vibration and all that kind of stuff. But all these things, if they're not really taken into consideration, can make a car really miserable to drive. All the hardware's there, and it, on paper, it looks like, oh, this will be a really great car. It's got this, it's got that, it's got that. But you put it all together, and it's like, man, it's loud, and it rattles, and it whines, and it does all this stuff that just makes it miserable. So it can be, kind of disappointing. And that was one of the things that we set out to fix with Revology, is focus on a platform, properly engineer that platform, ensure that all the components work together, they're all happy together, and that the car functions like a real automobile should. And you can get in it and drive it and go places, and it performs great, it runs great, it's reliable, and it does what you expect an automobile to do. So that's really what we're all about.
Now, the first car took a while before it went into production because you spent like nearly a year in development. Is that discipline a lot like where you came from? You came from Ford Motor Company.
I did. Obviously, it's kind of, people will tell you that it takes 4 years to develop a car, but the truth is every car, seems like, they're sort of derivatives of something. It's pretty unusual to have an absolute clean sheet car. The engine architecture probably was already around. The basic platform, may have already been around and got modified or something. So I don't know. When I was at SVT, we used to do derivatives of existing Ford models, and we had a 24-month timeline. And it's roughly The first 12 months doing your engineering work, getting the basic set of specifications together, and then the second 12 months getting it ready for production. And all that, kind of blocking, the unsexy stuff, I guess, though, just getting it ready to go so that you can produce these things consistently, within budget, on time, with quality. So, yeah, it's a pretty long process.
You ended up going with 8.8.
Yeah. Well, we started with the 9-inch because obviously that's what was there.
Yeah.
And, everybody uses the 9-inch. It's solid, it's reliable, it's inexpensive, but well, it can be noisy. And, it's just because, and people will say, oh, well, it's not set up properly. Well, you got a guy who's been setting up 9 inches for the last 30 years of his life. It's set up properly. It's a matter of the gears themselves, the manufacturing process. You don't get the kind of quality and consistency that you get in an OEM gear set. So you might get a quiet one, sure, but then the next one's loud, and then the next one's quiet, the next one's loud, the next 3 are quiet, the next one's loud. You can't run manufacturing operation when you don't even know what you're going to get. So the 8.8 that we use is a Ford gear set. It's built in the Ford factory to OEM spec, and every single one is quiet. You drive down, drive down the road in our car. There's no gear whine at all. Problem solved. And the 8.8 is very stout. It's proven rear end, so there's no negative. Maybe it costs a little bit more. We had to re-engineer the rear suspension, to accommodate it, but it's worth it, and we're really happy with that decision.
The mules served their purpose. They really were worked hard. That front suspension feels just perfect, and I know that particular car had the special suspension setup with special springs and shocks and so forth. But can you talk more about how that works for Revology?
Yeah, well, when we built the concept car at the time, we were really concerned about the price point. That initial target price we had was about $125,000, and we had looked at the Coyote engine, but we saw the Coyote engine as being like an upgrade, so that you'd have like a basic car that would be in the $125,000 range, and then then if a customer wanted an upgrade in performance, he'd step up to the Coyote. And once we really got into the development, we realized that we would have to make so many accommodations for the Coyote just because of that physical size of the engine, and it really didn't make sense to. The two started to deviate so much. They're almost like two different cars, although on the outside they would look the same, and it just didn't make sense. And at the same time, our early clients were telling us that the price wasn't really an issue. It's that they wanted the best that they could get. So if it cost a little more for the Coyote, then that's what they want. And so we took our learnings and combined it with what our clients were telling us, and we determined, well, we really need to just go with the Coyote. That would be the right direction. And so the only car we ever built with the old Windsor pushrod engine was the concept car, the Amelia concept car. Yeah. So starting with production car number 1, it was Coyote, and of course we did build several cars with the LS3, which I haven't received any death threats about, but I have gotten a few nasty voicemail messages. And, but at the time, we were really concerned about having a solution to comply with the new, at the time, new low-volume vehicle regulations, which required an emission-certified engine. Ford didn't have an emission-certified engine solution in a crate engine. GM did, and the law was passed at the end of 2015, and EPA and NHTSA were given 1 year to get the regulations published, which meant like, wow, we got to get going. So we quickly developed a package that would accommodate the only engine on the planet that had a CARB EO certification that would comply, and rush, and got it in. And of course, they run great. I mean, sorry, Ford loyalists, but the cars really run great. I mean, that's an engine designed for a Corvette.
Yes.
I mean, fantastic performance, great sound, everything. So the customer's very happy. Well, what happened? EPA and NHTSA still haven't published the regs. So we're kind of in this holding pattern now. So the law was passed by the Obama administration, designed to, create, manufacturing jobs and grow this industry. Well, here we are now, 3 years later, nothing.
Right.
So, we're building to the old regulations that have been in place ever since, I guess, the beginning of time, which it means the replica cars that we build are rolling chassis. They're not complete automobiles, just like Superformance or Factory 5. And then the cars that we build, we can do a turnkey car, but that's based on an original Mustang. So it's like a restoration.
But you're still working with SEMA.
Yeah.
I know in the beginning that you helped initiate some of those ideas.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk. I mean, it was great. SEMA, got through their efforts, got the law passed. That's great, but it's not across the goal line yet.
Right.
And until we have regulations published, no manufacturers can actually build cars under the regs. Now, I mean, we have a car that will comply. I mean, we've set up the company basically to comply. I mean, that's in fact the reason that we're here today is because of the promise of being able to build new turnkey reproduction automobiles. We have a license from Ford to do that. We're the first company ever licensed by Ford to build a new reproduction Ford. We have a license from Shelby to build new reproduction Shelbys. We're just waiting for NHTSA and EPA to get their act together and publish the regs so that we can go. So meanwhile, I mean, we're still operating, not at the level that we would like to in terms of our output, but we're still able to function under the current regulations.
Sure. I talked to you a little bit earlier before we sat down here about my impressions of the car from driving and just the appeal of the car, and with my background with Ferrari and so forth. The thing that really, really impressed me was the interior work.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. We do take a lot of pride in our interiors. We've got a team of highly skilled technicians that do the interiors. They're all done in-house. Most of the cars that we build, clients spec them out, all leather surfaces, dash, doors, obviously the seats, trim panels, I mean, even headliner.
Right.
And they look great and they smell awesome.
I love the stitching, and I mean, you just don't start sewing an interior. I mean, there had to have been a lot of development, and I know your inlays and you just look at the buttons and the way the dashboard is stitched, and it takes a lot to know those materials.
Yeah. Well, and the inlays are genuine, so we use walnut, quartered walnut. We use brushed aluminum. All the material. I mean, the type of materials, it really conveys a message to the person that's in the car. I mean, that they're really in something special. It has the same design as the 60s Mustang, but you know instantly that you're in something very, very different just because of the quality of the the tactile feel of the
even the steering
materials.
wheel was very, very special. And then the new button layout too, with the push button start, and then there's the push button for the emergency brake system. I mean, you feel like you're in a 2019 vehicle.
Yeah, and the things, I don't know if it's controversial or not. I mean, we've had a few people say, well, why'd you put a push button start in it? I like the key. It's really a couple things. I mean, one is the switch itself, the key switch. We didn't find it to be quite as reliable as we would like, and of course the push button switch is a modern switch, and it has a rolling code encrypted security feature as well. The old ignition switches, you could just jam a screwdriver in there and start the car, take off. So there's some security benefit to it as well, and so it's always a trade-off when you're making the decision between the original aesthetic and the modern function, because you never get something for nothing. You want 6-speed automatic transmission that'll just shift through all the gears real smoothly and make sure that you're always in the rev band and you get great mileage on the highway. Okay, that's a much larger transmission than the 3-speed that came in at 50 years ago. Where's it going to fit? That means a bigger tunnel. Okay, well now you lose the appearance of the interior. Well, all right, how important is that to you? What's really important to you? Do you want it to drive like a modern car, or do you want it to look like an old car? And I think we've done a good job striking the right balance, to find something that, it looks pretty authentic. I mean, you look at it the first time, you just think you're looking at an old Mustang, but then you look at it again, you say, wait a second, there's some little details here that kind of tell me I'm not looking at an old Mustang. And we think that's about the right balance. You don't necessarily go around trumpeting the fact that you're driving a Revology Mustang. Most people wave at you, think you're just driving an old Mustang.
You can't just look at the car and say, well, we ordered a bunch of reproduction parts, put it together.
A lot of the stuff we've done in-house, but an awful lot of stuff we've done in collaboration with suppliers. That the seats as an example, we just couldn't find seats that did what we wanted. We wanted seats that felt modern but truly looked like original seats. We didn't want seats that looked like kind of out of place. And sometimes the subtlety is important. The design of our car has a certain subtlety. It's a classic look. It's not like overly expressive maybe, or in your face. It's it's a very expensive car. I mean, our average transaction price is approaching $200,000. So the buyer of that type of car wants something more subtle, classic, tasteful. And we just couldn't find anything on the market that really did everything we wanted, so that's why we had to design our own seats.
But still, at that price point, you're still well under what an actual Shelby from the day would be worth. It
depends which one.
It depends
some
on
are
which
certainly
one.
in that range. Some are way higher than that. But I honestly don't think it's a comparison. I mean, an original Shelby is a museum piece, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but its value is all intangible. Its value is all the fact that it is an original Shelby. That's the value.
Right.
I mean, as far as the metal and the rubber and the everything that's in it, that's not really worth anything. It's like a painting. I mean, a painting is just canvas and a bunch of ink. I mean, that's not worth anything. It's the intangible. It's what it means. It's what it represents. That's what its value is. And so it's something like that. You don't drive it. I mean, really, you really don't.
So you take the intangible and you make it tangible.
Well,
actually,
our value is tangible.
Right.
Now, we could never, this car wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the legend that was created by Shelby. I mean, that's what makes it, and Mustang for that matter. I mean, look, Mustang is still, no one's ever topped, and it was 2.5 years, 1.3 million cars sold. I mean, it's an icon. And so, I mean, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the what was created back then by Ford, by Shelby. But you just can't use that old car. You just can't use it, and you don't really want to, because it's not fun to drive, and it's slow, and it's unreliable, and it smells like gas, and there's no air conditioning, and it's just it's not you know, the memory is way better than the reality. So, you know, I don't think they're comparable. Although they look very similar, they're just the same people don't necessarily, you don't buy them for the same reasons. You know, they say that although men buy most cars, women actually influence the vast majority of car purchases. I think 90% of car purchases are influenced by women.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, the couples that, you know, have purchased cars from us, I see a common sort of theme. I mean, they're couples that have been together a long time, obviously, but they've been through a lot. You know, they might have started a business together and really struggled and, you know, worked hard and, you know, overcome a lot of obstacles. But you see this kind of relationship that is so solid, where, you know, you can kind of tell one of them is the reason that they're there, but the other one completely supports, you know, and that, it could be the man or the woman, you know, and it doesn't matter. I mean, but somebody found us first, right? And then the other one. But it's, you know, I suppose in a way it could be some of the attraction to a company like ours, because we're really, you know, still a pretty young company. 5 years is pretty young. And, you know, we're growing quickly. I mean, we increased our sales 50% over the prior year, you know, last year. And when you're talking about a product as complex as the automobile, I mean, that's a pretty big increase. And I think a lot of the clients that kind of identify with us and kind of know, yeah, I remember when we were starting our business and how tough it was, and, you know, the kind of things. So yeah, maybe that is part of it. But you know, the psychographics of the customer base, we sort of segment them into, they kind of fall into 4 different groups. The first group, we'll call it the been there, done that. So the been there, done that. Been there, done that is they're basically guys, and they've had every car, like every car you know, whatever. You know, I mean, F40, yeah, had it. You know, Enzo had it. LaFerrari had it. You know, Singer Porsche got 2 of them. You know, whatever. Just because it's cool and they can afford it, they want it. Right, and because here we are, it's, well, I want one of those too. Unfortunately, there's not enough of those guys around to actually keep a business going. So you got to attract some of the other types of customers. And you know, the next one is serious collector. We call serious collector. Now, when we started, we thought that, oh, the collectors are probably not going to like us, because, you know, we're taking their treasured icon and, you know, we're changing it, right? We're putting modern suspensions and engines, and they actually run, and, you know, like they run circles around your collector car. But it's actually quite the opposite. The collectors really, probably more than anybody, know what the shortcomings of those original cars are and appreciate what we've done in the development of our vehicle. So we do have collectors that have ordered, in some cases, multiple cars from us. So that's a segment. Then there's a group that we call reward to self. Reward to self is self-explanatory. This is the person or the couple that, you know, I mentioned earlier, that had the business and they worked really hard, and they put the kids through school, and kids are out of school now and they're on their own, and, you know, they're empty nesters, and they're kind of, you know, saying, you know, I'd like to be able to, you know, kind of reward myself for all that years of hard work and give myself something really special. And this is something really special. You know, we built a car, you know, recently for a couple that had a '66 Mustang when they first got married. And then they had their first child, and they had to sell the Mustang and buy a practical car. And then the rest of their many years was practical car after practical car, and more kids and college and the whole thing. And now the kids are all gone, and they're back together with each other, and they thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have that old Mustang again? But yeah, it didn't have air conditioning, it had rolled up windows, and it wasn't fun to drive, it wasn't reliable. But we actually built them a car that evokes the memory of their original Mustang, same color, same interior, everything, but of course the Revology version. So that's kind of they for them, that was a reward that they gave to themselves, and they're able to kind of relive their youth and together. And then the last category, we call it experience seeker. So the experience seeker may not have ever had a classic car before, but they're into experiences. They're not so much into material things. They're not like collecting anything, but they're just more about doing interesting and different things that other people don't do. And as one of our clients that lives up in the Northeast, he drives his car like everyone would drive a everyday car. I mean, he just throws all the kids in the back and just drives around. And why not? He's got the coolest car around. Goes out to the Hamptons and everyone's driving Range Rovers and Ferraris, and but everyone's looking at his car because it's like nothing else on the road. So it's that segment is also interesting because it's people that would not have considered a classic car otherwise. So those are kind of our key psychographic segments.
I see your marketing radar is still working perfectly with all your experience with all. So it was Nissan, Ford. You had what? How many years did you have? 17 years with Ford?
I was 17 years with Ford and 7 years with Nissan.
Right. So that's quite the experience. So you know how to relate to the customer. You know how to analyze, and there's got to be an awful lot in these cars that went through a lot of analysis processes to try to find, like you said, to fill all those different niches and appeal to all those different customers. Yeah, well,
I think you never stop trying. It's understanding kind of what customers feel, what they think, even if they're not able to articulate it. And you have to make trade-off decisions. Again, you don't get something for nothing in the development of a car or an airplane or anything. And every day you've got to make decisions on what would be the most appealing combination of attributes, and then you got to balance that against price, and try to come up with the right formula that appeals to the target that you're trying to reach. So it's kind of never ending, and we're always talking with our customers and learning from them, and trying new things out and seeing how they work. And we just hope to always stay one step ahead of the other guy.
It's interesting too how your warranty program and how you stand behind the product and all of that is that to me would be important if I was spending that kind of money. But you're similar to OEM, to Detroit basically, and what you offer as far as paint warranties and mechanical warranties and so forth.
Yeah, well, we have it's a 1-2-5, so 1 year bumper to bumper, 2 years powertrain, and 5 years rust and corrosion on the body. So the 5 years is the same as what Ford offers on a new Mustang, for example. The powertrain warranty is through the manufacturer of the powertrain, Ford. Right. So the 1 year bumper to bumper, it's unlimited mileage. Warranty is sort of putting your money where your mouth is. If you're going to back your product with a warranty, then you're saying, hey, we've done the work to ensure that this product works as intended, and we're willing to stand behind it. People sometimes ask, well, can I get this engine, or can I get that, or can you do this, can you do that? And we say, no, you can have this engine or that engine. You can have this transmission or that transmission. You can choose from these 3 different brake packages.
Because
that's
they're proven, and
that's why.
And that's,
because we've tested them,
yeah.
we know they work, we'll warranty them. But we're not just, building willy-nilly, whatever. We couldn't warranty that. We have no idea how it's going to perform in the field. Because you brought into the company at the early stage knowledge and expertise that it takes to build a Pebble Beach winning Ferrari. That's
right.
Unparalleled. That's that kind of craftsmanship is a lost art, and you brought that into our company and institutionalized it, and we took that ball and ran with it. So what you created at Revology in the early days is what ensures that every car that we build has this exceptional fit and finish, and flushness and gaps in the panels and things that, Mustangs never came off the assembly line looking like this. We've had a lot of people ask us, to sell, if they're building their own Coyote swap restomod, and we're going to start doing that this year. It's just we've got a lot of things that we've developed, a lot of components that we've developed that lend themselves extremely well to an original Mustang, and it's just been a matter of time. We've been so busy with production, vehicle production, we just have not had the time to focus on getting some of these parts out, but we definitely will be doing that this year.
It's an evolution that's similar to OEM. When they start building, that's the reason you have your Coyotes from Ford, is they offer something that eventually Revology is going to do. You're going to offer brake systems, probably, I'm going to guess.
Well, the things people most want in a restomod, chassis, brakes, steering, powertrain. Yeah, we've picked chosen very carefully the wheels that are the right size and have the right aesthetic, and we think that's something, it's a detail to get that right, and it's an important detail.
Tom, it was great being here, and I really enjoyed my visit, and especially thank you for the drive.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for visiting.